Ukraine and its allies have been marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. Europe's deadliest conflict since the Second World War has upended the international order, while efforts to bring about an end to the fighting appear to be largely stalled. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says his country remains unbroken, while Russian President Vladimir Putin says his forces will battle on until all the Kremlin's goals are met. True casualty figures may never be known, but what is clear is that the war has caused tremendous suffering.
Silence falls across Kyiv as Ukrainians stop in the streets to reflect on 4 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. Leaders from some European nations, including the Finnish president and the Danish prime minister, joined EU chief Ursula von der Leyen in Kyiv for the commemorations. Services took place across Ukraine to remember the tens of thousands who haven't returned from the front lines, including here in Bucha, a small town close to the capital, where scores were brutally massacred in the early days of the invasion.
My son, who died during the war, is buried here. And it's not just today. My wife and I have been coming here every single day for the last 4 years.
Addressing the people of Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy had a clear and defiant message.
Putin has not achieved his goals. He did not break the Ukrainians. He did not win this war. We have preserved Ukraine, and we will do everything to achieve peace and to ensure there is justice.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, there are banners calling on new recruits to join the fight, with the Kremlin saying on Thursday it has not achieved all its aims in Ukraine and will continue with what it calls its military operation. After a morning of reflections, President Zelenskyy went to join world leaders for a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. They urged Russia to agree to an unconditional ceasefire as Ukraine enters its 5th and hopefully final year at war.
Of course, most of the country isn't taking part in official commemoration events, but are observing today's anniversary in private. Here are some more Ukrainian voices after 4 years of war.
The world doesn't hear us at all. We're here alone in our suffering. Our homes are being destroyed every day. Children are dying every day, and no one hears us. They may feel bad about what's happening, but no one truly understands us.
It may sound harsh, but I believe that our best people are either on the front lines or, unfortunately, have already died. Their families are living with great grief and sorrow.
Under no circumstances should we give up an inch of Ukrainian territory. We saw what happened in Crimea when everyone was silent, and the invaders' appetite for other territories grew.
I would like Ukraine to flourish, for everything to be as it was before, and even better. I don't know if that will happen, but let's hope it will.
To talk more about today's anniversary, we're joined by Rudik, who is a member of the Ukrainian party from the opposition Holos Party. Welcome back to DW, Kira. As the war against Russia's full-scale invasion enters a 5th year, are you convinced that President Zelenskyy is the right person, the best person, to end this war on terms acceptable to Ukraine?
Hello, Phil, and thank you so much for having me. Well, even if we had some alternative candidates to President Zelenskyy, it wouldn't mean anything because according to Ukrainian constitution and laws, we cannot hold elections during the martial law. So we cannot hold elections before the war ends. And this is why, no matter that there are many things to criticize our president for, we are sticking with him and we are supporting him because there is no alternative.
And what do you criticize him for?
The main thing, and it is obvious, is surrounding himself with people who are involved in corruption. There has been many corruption cases over the last year that are under the investigation by our anti-corruption organs, and these people are from President Zelensky's internal circle or his previously, before politics, business partners. And these cases, not only they are harmful to Ukraine, to economy, to trust of Ukrainian people to President Zelenskyy, they are harmful to the international support, because this was one of the key issues that our Western partners have had with Ukraine, saying that Ukraine is a corrupt country. And cases like this are supporting this narrative, which I can assure you is not true, because we are, as developing country, have corruption issues, but this is not an issue that is like going through every single thing in our parliament and government.
You talk about the people around the president being involved in corruption investigations. Do you believe President Zelenskyy himself is involved in corruption?
I have no facts to support this statement, and however, I seriously doubt that his surrounding could have done this corruption without like silent nods. But I'm right now not ready to accuse president of anything without any supporting facts. Again, because the credibility of the president is essential for our country's survival.
Understood. As President Trump might put it, what cards does Volodymyr Zelenskyy have left to play in this war?
These cards is Ukrainian army, first and foremost, that was completely underestimated both by Russia and by our Western partners. We have a strong army that is exhausted but is still fighting and still is able to surprise so many people throughout the world. Second point is our technological advancement. What we are developing and figuring out is really an ability to have an asymmetric response to different sources of Russia's attacks. We still have a high support and stability within the country that is really unlikely 4 years into full-scale invasion and 12 years into the war. We have a strong support from different Western countries, obviously European countries, whose leaders showed up today in Kyiv, assuring us that the support will not be decreased and will not be dimmed. So right now, I think we are not in a weak position as American administration is trying to pose it.
Let's talk about European support. President Zelenskyy led a meeting of Ukraine's backers today, this so-called coalition of the willing. We'll listen to an appeal he made and then come back to you.
We need Europe in negotiations. We do what we can to involve Europeans as much as possible, and we count on your leadership in all this negotiation process. We will have trilateral format, I think, during this week or 10 days. And what can I say? We need peace, but we have to prepare to any other kind of challenges from Russian side.
Kira Rudik, is Europe doing enough to help Ukraine, especially given this wavering support from the United States?
Europe is definitely trying to do their best. Obviously, there are many things that we would expect be done more, starting from the sanctions and making sure that they actually work. Because, you know, Phil, we have been talking about this so many times, and we know the list of the ships in the Shadow Fleet. For some reason, only a part of them are under the sanctions right now. We hope that at some point there would be a political will to sanction all of them. Same goes with the Russian assets that are being stored in Belgium. There has been political will to use the interest of them, but not the will to confiscate them completely. And as of right now, there is more money there than in total was the support from all the European countries since the beginning of full-scale invasion. We are talking 200 billion euros. We also would wish to have more support in terms of military and defense items. We know that Europe is ramping up its production, and we are working closely to make sure that this production is not of some obsolete technologies of the wars from the past, but this actually something that we can use in the current war. So I think we're on a very good path here in this collaboration, and even the decreasing support of the United States can be covered by Europe.
And what do you think is holding Europe back from imposing further and bigger sanctions against Russia, doing more against these Russian ships and assets?
First is the idea that everybody needs to be on board. And we know that different countries have different interests, and that sometimes it's very hard to get all the member states or even all the participants or the coalition of the willing on one decision. We understand that, and that has been a path over the last 4 years to bring everybody to the same page. But I'm again hopeful there because at the day one, countries were sending us helmets and with the wishes to keep fighting. Then we moved to getting Leopard tanks, then we moved to getting wide-range weapons, and then fighter jets that we really begged for. So right now I'm really hopeful that at certain time this decision will be made, especially that we are working in bringing them closer.
Right. You talked about the obvious difficulties of getting 27 countries to align with their interests, but we see in the EU countries like Slovakia, like Hungary, increasingly vocal in their opposition to providing support for Ukraine in this war. We see European nationalists like Germany's AfD being pro-Russia. That must surely worry you.
Of course it does. And it's very painful that we know that almost on any common decision by European states, leadership of Hungary and leadership of Slovakia will come and try to block that. But we also understand that Mr. Orban and Mr. Fico are not only Ukraine's problem, that they are trying to break the unity within the European Union, and a different nationalist movement is also is dangerous for Ukraine's support, but it's also a big question how good they will do for their own countries. So again, the democracies need to be showing more strengths, actually deciding on the issues that really worry people, so that that populist moves from the right, from the left, will not be able to get into power.
Let's talk about what we're hearing from Russia. Vladimir Putin, speaking on today's anniversary, accused Ukraine of trying to torpedo the peace process. When he and his representatives turn up to peace talks and do nothing but repeat their demands, nobody really believes that Russia wants peace. However, Russia's pockets appear to be deeper than Ukraine's. Russia appears to be more ruthless in its determination to sacrifice its soldiers in the prosecution of this war. Can Russia outspend you, outshoot you, and just throw more troops at this than Ukraine? Can Russia just keep going and grind you down?
They will definitely try, and we will try to survive. Same way as we were doing not only 4 years ago and for the last 4 years, but for 12 years, that we were against the same enemy, the same country. So it is incredibly hard, and I wouldn't hide it, and people are exhausted. And it was always this fight of David versus Goliath. But for those who didn't believe in us 4 years ago, look, we are still here. We are still fighting, we are kicking, and we have no intention of giving up. We didn't have it 4 years ago, and we do not have it right now.
So look ahead to a year. Nobody wanted this anniversary. We didn't want it last year. We didn't want it the year before. Look ahead to next year. Where do you think Ukraine will be a year from now?
We will keep fighting. If Russia wouldn't stop, that I can tell you for sure. We will probably become more exhausted and there will be more funerals to attend. But again, without the real pressure from our Western partners, Russia will indeed continue grinding, continue fighting. I'm sure that over the next year, we will again surprise you many, many times in the abilities to kick where it hurts our enemies and with the different operations that our military execute on. I hope that we can get closer to peace. But unfortunately, here on the ground, it doesn't seem that Russia is ready to stop. And this is why we need to brace ourselves to continue fighting. It is incredibly scary and it is incredibly hard. If we return back 4 years ago and would think that it will last for 4 years, yeah, I think it would be like impossible to handle emotionally. And that's why it's very hard to imagine that we'll have to stand for more 1 year. But I don't see any other choice for us.
Thank you so much for joining us and talking us through that. Ukrainian lawmaker Kira Rudik.
Thank you.
Well, Scott Craig speaks for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He joins us also from the Ukrainian capital. Welcome to DW. This is the second year Russia's chosen to target Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Just talk us through the effect these attacks are having on daily life there.
Well, good evening, Phil. Thanks very much for having me and for shining a light on a pretty desperate humanitarian situation in Ukraine 4 years into the escalation of the conflict. Put simply, the impact and effect of the attacks on the energy systems in the country are absolutely devastating for people. I think for many, if not most people in Ukraine, the humanitarian situation is the worst it's ever been at this stage, and they've affected every single part and every single person in the country. You know, we talk a lot about attacks on energy systems and infrastructure, but it's not about infrastructure, it's about people. I've been meeting people in Ukraine for the last 7 or 10 days or so when I'm here. And, you know, people are cold, they're tired, they're left in the dark. There's no energy, there's no electricity for, you know, sometimes 22 hours a day, sometimes more. And it is absolutely devastating for people at this stage.
And while because lots of these blocks of flats, they have centralised heating systems. So when the heating plant is gone, you've got a whole neighbourhood with no heating in sub-zero temperatures. How good is Ukraine these days at getting those systems working again?
Look, credit to the Ukrainian utilities and emergency services. They're absolutely brilliant and working in all conditions. I mean, I think as you've been reporting on DW, it's been the coldest winter in a very long time. And so energy workers have been out around the clock trying to fix things. But the bottom line is the damage to the energy systems is so extensive that, as your reporter said in his piece, energy is not expected to be returned in a sustainable way to many neighborhoods and many parts of the country, you know, for several months to come. Many people in Kiev and other cities have tried to move to places where there is, you know, it's slightly more stable energy, where they are able to use generators. We at the IFRC have been giving out generators to the Red Cross and to local organizations here. And the hum and buzz of generators is something you hear across the country. But the simple fact of the matter is you can't run a city or a country on generators. And so, you know, we are extremely concerned about the energy crisis, because the energy crisis is a humanitarian and a human crisis.
And just
and one of the things. Yeah, sorry.
Just on those internally displaced people, those people who have been bombed out of their homes, and what fate awaits them? They haven't left the country. They're still somewhere in Ukraine, but not at home. What happens to them?
I'm glad that you've asked this question, because we've been speaking a lot about Ukrainian refugees outside of the country, rightly so. But we have nearly 4 million, 3.8 million internally displaced people within Ukraine, many of whom are really struggling to find any place to live. One of the things that we're doing at the Red Cross is trying to rehabilitate people's homes in areas. Frontline areas where there's extensive damage to people's homes. We're rebuilding, replacing windows. We've also set up temporary shelters. In Sumy, for example, just a few days ago, the Ukrainian Red Cross opened a temporary shelter. But the simple fact of the matter is there's not enough housing and shelter places for people who are internally displaced. Many are struggling, many are living with family, many are in temporary places, and it's an extremely difficult situation for internally displaced people in Ukraine.
OK, thanks for talking us through that, Scott. Scott Craig from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies.
Thank you.
Well, Sara Nanni is a member of the German Parliament. She sits on the Parliament's Defence Committee and speaks on defence for her party, the Greens. She joins us from the Ukrainian capital. Welcome to DW. I understand this is your fourth visit to Ukraine since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. How has the country changed during those 4 years?
To be honest, every time I come to Ukraine, I come back to Germany with more hope. But it's true that this winter has been specifically hard for the Ukrainian population. As you mentioned, Russia was bombarding more than ever the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, and people were freezing for weeks and for months. And of course, this is going on the morale of the population as well. But again, I find here a very strong people who are willing to continue the fight against Putin and Russia.
After Russia invaded in 2022, the German government responded to Ukraine's appeal for help by sending 5,000 helmets. Your party, the Greens, you were part of Germany's governing coalition at that time. With hindsight, should you have done more, quicker?
Definitely more and quicker, especially after the full-scale invasion started and everybody had to realize that there is no diplomatic solution. I remember very well that the troops were accumulating already in front of Ukraine in April and then in October 21. But at that time, we believed that maybe diplomacy can make a difference. We all had to learn that it couldn't. Putin attacked Ukraine in February 2022. And then indeed, the German government was too slow in delivering all kinds of weapons to Ukraine. We had this very awkward discussions about whether or not we should send tanks, for example. As you know, my party was, together with the Liberals, the one who tried to push the Social Democratic Chancellor to do more and to do it faster.
Is Germany doing enough now? It is Ukraine's biggest backer now, financially and militarily, but is that still enough?
Well, I think if we maintain the level of support, it will truly not be enough. And that is because the United States are doing almost nothing here on the ground when it comes to military support. Everything is financed by the European. So doing the same is not enough. And yes, everybody is very thankful when I'm here as German MP, how much Germany did. But in the same time, they are also frustrated about some details. For example, why do we not invest more in Ukrainian arms industry who know how to fight against Russia, who are combat proven, who have a lot of knowledge. They still lack finance, and this cannot be true. The Ukraine should not be defeated because of lack of money. We have enough resources in Europe, and Germany is very, very rich country. And we changed the constitution also to make more debts if we need to support Ukraine. Right. And then in the details, there could be more to be done.
Your party, the Greens, has been a pacifist party for a long time. How challenging has it been to develop such a different stance towards weapons, the military and defence spending?
Well, it's true that we haven't been among the most hawkish parties in the German parliament for a very long time. But we also were in the government when Afghanistan started. And we've been in the government when NATO was helping the Kosovarian people. So this story about my party is not completely true. Nevertheless, I think the Green Party is a party of people who want to survive and to acknowledge the right of others to survive. And in this case, it's really easy to understand that Russia is the aggressor and the victims are Ukrainians, and that the one who should survive are the Ukrainians, and they need weapons to do that.
Thank you for talking to us, German Green MP Sara Nanni from the Defence Committee of the German Parliament.